This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Hey, Rick, we just made it.
And I love the way you open your show with a laugh. It's great.
Well, yeah.
Because I know why you're giggling.
Hey, Rick, you've been in the studio with me. I mean, it's just all the time. I mean, we have a lot of fun. Everyone all set, cocked, locked.
I can tell where this one's going to go. Yeah, I know. That's what the newsie used to say. Well, I know.
Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com, and we're broadcasting 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Meet up next Monday, 5:30 at Ziggy's, live teleseminar with Joyce Riley. Joyce Riley is a fellow broadcaster, and maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about Joyce Riley and Sam Bushman and what we're up to right here in Missouri. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later. And converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Nathan's at the controls, and Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, the real Fox Mulder of the X-Files. And Dr. Richard Allen Miller was the lead physicist for the U.S. Navy at the Pentagon. I'm so glad you're here with us, Rick.
Well, my pleasure. I loved last week, and the feedback is just exceptional. It's wonderful to feel like maybe there's something happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rick, honesty and integrity are very important to all of us here at USAPrepares.com. Now, I've received a stack of letters in a large manila envelope the other day. And, Rick, these are thank you letters to you and me, and I'd like to read every single one on the air. And some of them have questions, and I'd like to answer the questions that are directed toward you and me during this broadcast. And I know that Grace Thorne's 6th grade class in Ryan, Oklahoma, is listening, as they do every Thursday as part of their education. 6th grade education in Ryan, Oklahoma. And Larry Ninman is the superintendent of schools there. And he allowed us to use his office as a classroom last Thursday. So we took over his classroom. The students were on a speakerphone. Rick was in the West Coast. I'm in the central part of the country. The broadcast is being produced in Minnesota. So it was able to work, and it worked technologically very, very well. So we're going to answer all of these questions that the students submitted to us via written form. So not only did the students have to think about questions they wanted to ask of a real physicist or a real scientist, they had to write them down. They had to rehearse them. They had to practice how they were going to behave in the superintendent's office with just their teachers supervising for 2 hours. That is absolutely astounding to me. And I believe that we were the first to do that in the country, where we had a broadcast classroom with 11-year-old students in a public school.
Well, that was actually the Ryan, Oklahoma was the first.
Oh, what did I say?
They should always remember, it might have just started last week in their class.
Yes. And Rick, I was talking about honesty and integrity at the top of the broadcast, and here's where I'm going with this. When a student submits homework and it's graded, or a student completes a written examination or writes a paper or takes a test, there is an unsaid but yet expected feeling that the teacher would read every word of that homework or examination before putting a grade on.
Proper read, yes.
Yes. And I know, without even discussing this with Grace Thorne, that she read every one of these letters that was sent to us. Now, here's where I'm going with this. That is absolutely critical for us to have that knowledge and that belief. Well, if we switch over to social studies, there was a representative by the name of Henry Waxman, a Democrat of California, and he was asked by CNS News whether he had read all 10,000 pages of the final Obamacare regulations and that had been published. And his response was, is it important that I read it? Now, the reason...
I think we're going to find out in the next 2 days. What do you think? We ought to read what the reports are now about Obamacare.
Right. And the reason I'm saying that, Rick, is at the highest levels of our government, these people are letting us down. We have hired them to represent our interests, and yet they are signing into law documents, regulations that they have not read. So I've said this before. I want to say it one more time on the air. And this is a bill that I've introduced that relates directly to this. I've introduced this to representatives in Missouri to see if they would run with this. And that is, it's called the Elected Representatives Integrity Bill. It's only one sentence. All Missouri elected representatives shall read every word and understand every word of every bill that he or she votes on or is subject to being charged with a Class A felony. Now, what that means, class, is that if someone is found guilty of a Class A felony, that means a minimum of 10 years in jail in Missouri. Now, does that seem extreme? Absolutely not. If these people who we represent we elect them to represent our interests, if they fail to do so, they are negligent and guilty of breaching the public trust, in my opinion. And they need to be prosecuted, and if found guilty, need to go to jail. It's as simple as that. Just as you expect your teacher to read your homework, otherwise, why would you turn it in, right? So we expect these representatives to do exactly what we hired them to do. Rick, that being said, why don't we start out with a letter that was written. There were congressmen and a U.S., 2 senators and 1 congressman each received 15 of these letters. And the letters were handwritten by the students. And they're absolutely brilliant. Now, remember, class, these were written by 6th grade students. Dear sir, after learning about what happened at the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, all 6th graders in Ryan, Oklahoma, strongly beg you to shut down all nuclear facilities. We know of 17 in the Tennessee Valley that are on fault lines. Whose bright idea was that? We believe that our future may depend on this. Sincerely, and they were signed by the students. Now, Rick,
that's an exceptional statement of position, because it's the children that are going to have to live with our errors and mistakes.
Rick,
that is absolutely a 10-year sentence. If someone lets something like that go and does not respond to these children, that's like a crime against education.
No disagreement from me. And let me tell you who these letters went to. U.S. Senator James Inhofe. And it was sent to his Washington, D.C. address.
Well, it's really interesting. Make a note. See what he does as a response to children that really care. What they should be, Oklahoma senators. They should, if that was Ryan, Oklahoma, those children deserve a response. What would be very cool is if that senator actually, when he went home, took time out of his schedule and visited that classroom to compliment them on their intent and interests in, what social studies, what's going on around them. That is what education is supposed to be about. And if that senator supported it, I would expect, if I were the senator, I would personally try to make an appearance and actually say something to the children to encourage them to continue that kind of action.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so letters, 15 of them went to U.S.
I'm
Senator.
Impressed.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah,
Yes.
U.S. Senator James Inhofe, and 15 went to U.S. Senator Tom Coburn. U.S. Senator Tom Coburn. And 15 went to United States Representative Tom Cole at their Washington offices. So here we have students who are learning penmanship. They are learning the art of being succinct, and they are applying what they've learned in science to what they've learned about social studies in our government. They put it all together. They wrote the letters. They're applying many skills to write these letters, send them off, and obviously Grace Thorne is involved in shaping the direction of getting these letters to our representatives. So I'm going to actually call, and I have the phone numbers. I'll tell you what. I'll give them out right now.
You're causing a riot. Actually, this is possibly one of the, I won't call it reform, but educational transformation. And that's what I think's happening now.
Okay, so I'm talking to our entire worldwide radio broadcast classroom. So let me read this letter again. Make sure you all understand it. Then I want you to get, right while I'm reading it, I'd like you to get your pencils and paper, notebooks, iPads, whatever you have, so that you can get down these phone numbers. And I'd like you to consider calling these representatives and ask them if they plan on responding to these letters, and maybe ask them if they would like to visit the school system, the Ryan Public School.
Starting something where these kids have a personal relationship to their environment and the people their parents elected for government.
Yep. So here's Nathan hit the button. So we're going into a break. When we come back, I will give you the phone numbers, the names and phone numbers of these United States representatives, people who are representing our interests, and we'd like to know if they plan on responding to the children's letters about radioactivity that we've created for their future.
This is great, Vincent. I just thought about everything that you're doing and the way you put it, and it absolutely is important. This is a Will Rogers kind of thing. Nice going.
So I've got the phone numbers here for the U.S. senators and representatives. I'm going to give those out in a minute, but let me read this letter, and I'd like to suggest that you consider writing your representatives and let them know that you heard this broadcast, you heard the letters that the sixth grade students have written to them, and you'd like to know if they plan on responding, and wouldn't it be nice if they showed up at Ryan Public Schools?
Just to respond to the importance of letting the children know their voice and questions are important.
Yeah, because after all, class, what we're doing is we're talking about your future, what we have done to the planet that you will inherit, good and bad. You're going to get it all. So here's the letter, and 15 were written to each one of these U.S. representatives. Dear Sir, after learning about what happened at the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan, all the sixth graders in Ryan, Oklahoma, strongly, and that's underlined, and it's bold, and this is handwritten, strongly beg you to shut down all nuclear facilities. We know of 17 in the Tennessee Valley that are on fault lines. Whose bright idea was that? We believe our future may depend on this. And then it's signed sincerely with each one was signed by
that's exceptional. brings tears to my eyes because it's a valid question. That's it's what I would call this is the great questions, things you always wondered but never knew who to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're asking them on the radio, and we are communicating this information to the highest levels of the United States government. So U.S. Senator James Inhofe, James, Inhofe, and I'm just going to give you his Washington, D.C. phone number, 202-224-4721. 202-224-4721. Then they were also sent to 15 to each of these senators and representatives. So 15 were also sent to U.S. Senator Tom Coburn. Tom, C-O-B-U-R-N. Tom Coburn. His phone number in Washington, D.C., 202-224-5757. 202-224-5757. Then 15 were also sent to U.S. Representative Tom Cole, Tom, C-O-L-E. And his telephone number is 202-225-6165. 202-225-6165. One more time. 202-225-6165. So my question is, they haven't received the responses to their letters yet. So that would be, I believe 60 letters were sent in all. 15 letters were sent to each one of these representatives. Why haven't they received a single response? Now, there were more letters that were written, but here's another letter written by a student by the name of Lily. Lily, I'm just going to use her first name, not her last name. And she's in the same school, same 6th grade. And listen to this one. Dear Congressman, why are we bombing Syria? They haven't done anything to us. I strongly, and this is bold, uppercase, handwritten, I strongly suggest that we don't bomb Syria. Our future depends on it. Give us a chance to grow up. If we bomb Syria, we may damage our future. It could end up like World War I or World War II. The only reason we're going to bomb Syria is because they had chemical weapons. It doesn't mean they will use them on us. Sincerely, Lily, last name withheld. Rick, these children have insight that some adults don't have. They're 11 years old. Ryan, Oklahoma. I want to congratulate Grace Thorne, their 6th grade teacher, and the principal and the superintendent. And when we come back, if you'd like to call the superintendent and say thank you, that's Larry Ninman. I'm going to give you his number when we come back, so you can do it personally. Hey, Rick,
all right.
Well, no, Rick, no one ever trained me.
I love it.
No one ever trained me how to be a broadcaster, so I'm learning on the fly. So, Rick, I got it.
I'm loving it. I think it's great.
Rick, I got an email this morning at 6:18 this morning. I've got to read this to you. It's from Grace Thorne, our 6th grade public school teacher in Ryan, Oklahoma. It says they picked a class motto, a motto for the class. Get this, Rick. Above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. Is that unbelievable or what?
Yeah. Well,
so that's the class motto.
Transformation, and radio might be one of the tickets on how to do that as an extracurricular educational library thing. Something where these kids can go for questions. Where else would they ask them? And that might be, people like Norm Shealy, you, others, that have specialized insights on medicine and things like that. You can't ask that in a sixth grade class. The teacher isn't equipped to be able to respond to all of that. But to be able to go out and ask experts that are willing to take the time and actually try to address these issues as part of their job description, responsibility.
Yeah. Well, Rick, let's read some of these letters. Now, class, these are addressed to me about the show, so I just want to give you the context. Dear Mr. Finelli, and these are all handwritten. They're handwritten in pencil to teach letter writing and to show the teachers are being shown by the students that they can write letters succinctly, accurately to their point, and it also shows their ability to their penmanship. It shows their penmanship. So here we go. Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you for letting us be on your show. We want to be on your show again. Now, I'm not laughing at the students. I just think this is so neat that they want to be on the show again. Then it goes on to say, I had the best time talking with you and Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller was cool. I think it was fun talking to you and Dr. Miller. We all had a blast talking to you. We hope to talk to you again. Your friend, Gabrielle. So that was a nice thank you letter. Here's another one. Thank you so much for letting us be on your show. It was a great experience. Mrs. Thorne told us that we were ranked number 15, and that's out of all the broadcasts that were running at that time across the country, and that would be number 15 out of 100. It was awesome. My parents listened to it, and they loved it. Again, thank you so much, Samantha. Now, Rick, here's something that we can take from that. The parents are becoming involved with what the students are doing. Now, how often do the parents get involved with that to this level where they're actually communicating with the teachers, with other parents, with the students, and saying to the students,
I talked with some school teachers in California that deal with elementary education, starting with first grade. And she is in a special community where it's mostly Korean. And so there's a lot of Korean rather than American. They're naturalized. They're American now, but it isn't Spanish, it's Korean. And their relationship to education is quite different than our current one with most Anglo-white communities today. The teachers will come in on a regular basis to assist in the classroom because they want to participate in their children's education. And that has something that has been lost with the nuclear family. It's really a shame to see what's happening because of divorces and split families, drugs, whatever, and how it affects the children who are extremely resilient.
Mm-hmm. Here's another letter, Rick.
What's that? Yeah, great.
Here's another
wonderful.
Letter. I've got a whole stack of them. Dear Mr. Finelli, I just wanted to thank you for the show and about letting us talk to Dr. Miller. And in case you didn't know, you are very funny. The funniest person I know. And Dr. Miller is very smart. But anyway, thank you for letting me be on the show and the rest of the class. You're a friend. And I think I'm just going to use his initials, GP. Interesting. I don't try to be funny. What you're hearing is what I'm like. And I can assure you that what you're hearing with Dr. Miller is what Dr. Miller's like. Because I know Dr. Miller pretty well. He comes to the farm and we spend days upon days together. And, when we have the expos and the meetups and things. So we are, whatever you think we're like, we're really like that. We're not acting. This is really who we are. Dr. Miller, we have Mike from Minnesota on the line with us. Mike from Minnesota?
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Vince. Hi, Dr. Miller.
Hi there.
I have a question. It's nothing to do with what you talk about regarding education there, but it's about Fukushima. Now, this whole thing is inevitable, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty much just mathematical certainty, like the dollar collapsing, this fuel pool 4 and whatnot. And what I'm getting at is this: it's like, you ever see the movie The Road?
Sure.
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, yes.
I can't watch that movie anymore. I see that.
I know.
I honestly see that. That's America, and just once all that MOX fuel and everything like that gets really into gear, that's this country in about 2 years. I mean, because when that radiation gets in the ocean, evaporation goes in the clouds, it rains over the whole...
Mike, hold it for just a second. I want to be very, very careful with what we say today. And here's why. We have sixth graders in the broadcast classroom with us.
Oh, geez.
And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I would prefer not, Mike. I'll tell you what.
Let's not. Everybody gets it. The problem is there will be solutions. It's whether it's 3 minutes to midnight or it's 3 milliseconds to midnight. The new book I'm writing on the non-local mind in a holographic universe will actually discuss how to change the movie. And that's going to be, chapters will include purpose, intentionality, ascension, and several others. I'm going to have the 8 worlds again, like I did in Power Tools, where there are some actual protocols that we can go by to physically change our universe. And it all starts with the children. It's going to be the children that make the changes and save the universe. It's not going to be us. We are incapable of doing that, and the children are not. They're wide open. They have that ability to think clearer. They make better food choices than we do. I read one letter about a kid that they said they didn't see, after me talking about Coca-Cola, there wasn't one single can of soda pop in the cafeteria for that week. Now, these kids get it, and I have optimistic views that I think that it's going to be something we've never even thought of that the children will come up with because of their imagination. It all starts right now, right here.
Mike, thanks so much for the call. I really appreciate it. Rick, it's interesting what you're saying about the Coca-Cola, because all we did was answer a question, and the impact was to stop the consumption of Coca-Cola in a school, at least for a week, that we know of, right?
Well, it's awareness, and these children are more intelligent than we are. That is quite evident in the questions that they ask. I don't hear politicians talking about that, and certainly had never heard anything with the presidential debates regarding Fukushima or anything related to Syria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next letter is, Dear Mr. Finelli, it was so fun being on your show. We thank you for answering all of our questions. We can't wait to do this again. I hope you had fun too, Alexa. Now, Rick, here's what I'm hearing in these letters. And for our worldwide radio audience, the reason we're doing this is we want to address the children's concerns. We want to show you that education to the level that we expect is possible. You're seeing it right here. And we want to show you that...
It's happening right now in Ryan.
Right.
I mean, there it is.
Right.
One day at a time.
Mm-hmm. And we're changing. We're changing education right here. And it's happening with the teachers. It's happening with the superintendent who agreed to do this, the principal who agreed to do it. Let me give you the superintendent's number. If you'd like to call and thank him.
I thought it was brilliant on his part to allow this. I thought it was exceptional. He has to report to a school board and has to stay in margin with the curriculum. And so for him to step outside the box for a moment is really impressive.
Mm-hmm. His name is Larry Ninman, and his phone number is 580-757-2308. 580-757-2308. Now, here's why I'm giving you his number. Class, you may have students in your family. They may be your children, and you may want to do something like this with a radio broadcast in your area, or you may want to involve us. And that's possible. We might be able to do it. I don't think we can do it for every school in the country, but we can certainly do it for some. So if you're interested in doing exactly what Rick and I are doing, teaching school from the radio broadcast, encompassing so many skill sets all at one time, including public speaking at the 6th grade level, worldwide public speaking, we can help you. So Larry Ninman's number is 580-757-2308. Class, Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and we're reading some thank you letters that came from the 6th grade class, Grace Thorne's class in Ryan, Oklahoma, Ryan Public Schools. And these are a result of a class that Dr. Richard Miller and I were teaching last week on the air. And this letter is, Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you for putting us on your show. I was wanting to know where you live. It was fun being on your show. It was really cool. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for some kids, but not for all. I hope I get to meet you in person sometime. And I think what Bryant was trying to say is it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for some, and he used the word kids, but not for all. I think he really means that he wants to do this again. So it won't be once in a lifetime for him and his class, but it might be for some other classes. So that's kind of neat. So, Brian, you want to know where I live? I live in Missouri, near Springfield, Missouri, and it's the 3rd largest city in Springfield. But I live in the middle of nowhere, a very, very small town, about really small, right, Rick?
Yeah, well, it's beautiful where you are. I mean, it's very nice. You can't see your neighbors' homes. It's like it's timbered. It's beautiful.
If you were to put this in miles, we are 454 miles from where your school is, Bryant. So I just wanted to share that with you. It would take about 7 hours, maybe 8 hours by car to get from where you are to the farm where I live. Next letter is, thank you so much for letting us be on your program. We had a lot of fun and hope to do it again. I still can't believe we were rated number 15. Now, here's what I'm reading into these letters, Rick. I'm reading that these children had an absolute blast, that I can tell that they were probably a little bit nervous going into the superintendent's office for this broadcast class that we had last week. But I can tell from the tone of the letters that they really enjoyed it, and I'll bet they love going to school, because I can tell that Grace Thorne is teaching differently from what is happening in so many other schools today. Don't you feel that way, Rick?
I'm impressed with everything. I mean, it's just, and the excitement of the children being able to find a place where they can ask these questions and have, responses they can relate to. It's kind of cool. Like the kid said, I'm cool. Well, it's kind of cool. It's very encouraging for me to realize that it's going to be these kids that save this world. It's not us. Mm-hmm. We made it the way it is. It's going to be these kids. I'm impressed.
Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you so much for letting us... By the way,
this is the most funnest time I've ever had working radio. Last week and right now. It's very cool.
There you go, class. And there was a thought that maybe the children might have thought that we were laughing at them. That is absolutely not the case. We're having speaking directly to the class in Ryan, Oklahoma.
It's refreshing. I believe the word is enlightening and refreshing and gives me hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are having a blast working with you. And it's so much fun that, class, you know how you giggle sometimes? Well, that's what we're doing. Dear Mr. Finelli, did you hit the button? Nathan, did you hit the button? He hit the button. Yes or no? Yeah, he hit the button. Nathan hit the button. We're going out of this hour. We're going to come back at the top of the next hour after the news and commercials. I'm going to read the rest of these letters, and we're going to answer all of your questions. So coming up next, Mackenzie, your letter's coming up next. I'm Vin Finelli. Richard Allen Miller's with us. This is USAPrepares.com, teaching 6th grade right here, right now.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com, and we're reading thank you letters and answering questions. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are at the broadcast classroom. We're reading letters from Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma, based on last week's class online, on satellite, and over the radio regarding science with the questions that the students answered or asked. Rick, currently there's a partial government shutdown, and I just want to let you know I'm against a partial government shutdown. I'd like it to see more like 99% shutdown.
Yeah, it's saber rattling, and it's not really right.
Rick, there was a top of the hour news story about Tesla, the electric car stock plunging 6% because of a fire. And class, I'd just like you to know this, that gasoline-powered vehicles catch on fire too. You know, Fords and General Motors and Chryslers and Maseratis and Lamborghinis and pickup trucks, you know, they've caught fire too. So this is not an unusual thing when a car catches fire. It's just that this happens to be a very expensive electric car that caught fire. So cars and trucks can catch fire. So today, I know what I want to say. Rick, I received a call from a we'll call this person a loyal listener, student, member of the class. I don't want to give too much information out about this person, but this person is very intelligent. This person is very computer savvy. And here's what I was told, that our broadcast on Tuesday with Dr. Judy Wood talking about what happened to the World Trade Center towers, what happened to them, where did they go, okay? That broadcast was not interrupted between me and Genesis Communications, the studio where I broadcasted from and in Missouri, and the Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. We did not have problems with the broadcast there, nor did we have problems with Dr. Judy Wood going from the East Coast to Minnesota. But the call that I got let me know that the broadcast went off the air on the internet during the broadcast when we were talking about the World Trade Center towers, where did they go? Some people would call it the attack on the World Trade Center. Some people might call it 9/11. But that's what we're talking about. So here's my request to our listening class. Did the broadcast get interrupted where you are? I'd like to know. Because normally when we talk about things like this, there's a potential for me getting knocked off the air. It happens a lot. Well, this time the connection went down from the internet outward. So did that happen to you? If so, would you please send me a very short email, vincent@usaprepares.com. You can go to the website. There's a contact tab, vincent@usaprepares.com. Could you let me know if it went down for you, maybe the state you're in, and when it went down, and for how long? I'd really appreciate that. So that's my request. Rick, you and I have been talking about these letters we've received from the students. This one's from Mackenzie. And Mackenzie said, "Thank you so much for letting us be on your radio show with Dr. Miller. This was a very good experience. I learned a lot from this. I can't wait to be on your show again. I wish I could meet you in person. At first, before we went on the show, I was really nervous, but it wasn't that bad. I have a question for you. What do you do when you're not at the studio?" So, Rick, do you want to answer that question? What do you do when you're not at the studio?
I'm driven to write, and so either I'm out walking in the woods, being quiet and listening to the wind in the trees, the wind in the willows, or I'm at my computer taking my thoughts and trying to somehow organize them for another book. I'm driven to write.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I am. It's a passion. It's it's your passion. That's what she's really wanting to know. What is my passion? My passion is being in the woods. And the third most important thing, sharing ownership is enhanced when shared with another. That's why I have a passion on writing my thoughts, because I want to share them. What is your passion? And that is probably where you're going to want to go in your life, following your passion.
Rick, I think we should take a few minutes and talk just about that, because what I believe you're saying is you're doing exactly what you want to do. No one is really telling you what to do. So you're having a lot of fun every day doing just what you want to do. And
exploring what it is and what is easy for me to do and why I would want to do that, and finding relationships in all of that. It's like a type of discovery of myself.
Mm-hmm. And, class, what we're saying is if you find something that you are absolutely passionate about, something that you absolutely love doing, and you can work toward making that the way you turn your hobby, what you have fun doing, into a business, you won't work a day in your life, because you'll just be doing what Rick and I are doing. I'm having a lot of fun. Nobody tells me what to do, how to do it. I do exactly what I want, but I have my own moral guidelines about what I want to do and how I would do it. But I'm not talking about being reckless and careless. What I'm saying is I want to do this. I'm passionate about doing it. And I don't wake up in the morning saying, "Oh, geez, I don't want to go to work today." It's not like that. I love what I'm doing. And if you, as Rick and I do, have that feeling about something that you're passionate about, you won't work a day in your life either. Now, I know Grace Thorne loves going to school, teaching her class. She loves doing that. And I imagine that the students, most of the time, love being in her class too. Now, there are days that they have tests and they go, they might not be too excited about that, but they love, overall, I'm sure they love being in her classroom because of the way she teaches, the way she makes the material interesting. And Rick, I want to share with you that a lot of these letters are signed, your friend, your friend, your friend. Thanks again. The next one I'm going to read is signed a little differently. So these are not form letters. That's what I'm saying. These are handwritten letters written by the students in their own hand, with their own hand. Dear Mr. Finelli, I'd like to thank you for letting us be on your program, for having us on your program. I had a really great time and learned a lot. Love, Walter. Doesn't that touch your heart, Rick?
Yeah.
Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you so much for letting us all on your radio show. We had so much fun, and we'd like to be on. We'd like to be on it again. We'd love to meet you personally one day. You're very inspiring to me and my class. I hope that you enjoy having us on your show. We love asking you questions about things we're interested in. Once again, thank you. Your friend, Cammie. Now,
you know, these comments should be inspiring to all of us in terms of our future.
Rick, I think what we need to do is work out some way that our class right here, the 6th grade class, comes to our next event, our next expo. If we could work it out where they could, all hop on a bus, they certainly would have. I would cover their admission. There'd be no admission charge whatsoever for them to come, and maybe they and Grace Thorne could teach a seminar on education and different techniques that teachers could employ to make education more interesting, more enjoyable, more effective, more efficient.
I'd love to meet these kids. I'd love to meet kids in general because it is so refreshing. I mostly talk about Antarctica and the Nazi base and aliens and the things like that, but really, these children are teaching me by making me have to remember or re-remember things that I had forgotten and wished I had kept with me. I really appreciate the children's questions.
Dear Mr. Finelli, thanks for letting us be on the show. I'm so grateful to ask a question to you. It was fun. Wow, you're very smart. Boy, do we have them fooled, huh, Rick?
Well, I don't think that's really relevant, actually, in some ways. Takes one to know one. There you go.
Wow, you're very smart. How do you know so much? You're one of the best radio stations ever. Grace, would you make sure that this student, her name is Grace, gets an A? Now here's the important part. It was very scary to think I may mess up. But it wasn't very scary at all. It was fun. I'll never drink a Coca-Cola again.
That's great. Good for her. Good for her. Making proper food choices. Maybe she'll teach her parents something.
Yeah. Then it goes on to say, thanks for the great advice. So, how do you think it was? You're pretty awesome. I love being on your show. And this is from Grace. I didn't read it all, but what I'm hearing is, Rick, did you learn in school? I was taught this. I'm just wondering if you learned it. That there's two theories about management. One is the employees absolutely hate going to work, and you got to beat them every day. And the other theory is your employees love going to work, and if you encourage them and give them the tools and you pat them on the back and you show them the way and you lead by example, it will work great. Two schools of management. I like the latter. Did you learn that, Rick? We'll talk about it when we come back. Class, we're reading some letters from students in Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma. And this is in response to being on the air with us, asking Dr. Richard Allen Miller last week their questions about science and life and so forth. Rick, when we're done reading these letters, I'd like to talk about Fukushima because there's There's now an admission of yet another leak. So we'll do that when we're done reading these letters. Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you for letting our 6th grade class be on your show. Our whole class enjoyed it. It was a whole lot of fun. I wish we could do it more, one more time. Just one more time, huh? Okay. Dr. Miller gave us wonderful answers. I know a lot more than I did. Thank you so much. Your friend, Savannah. So, Rick, another response where a student had fun. And Rick, when you taught your students, didn't you try to make it interesting, amusing, thought-provoking, entertaining, and fun so the students would really want to learn the subject matter deeper and pursue it deeper?
You know,
Isn't that what you did?
Really, teaching is actually learning. And I don't know how to explain this other than there's an exchange going on where the students, in their approach to what you're teaching, causes you to see things even more clearly and differently. And so there's an exchange of learning going on there. And when I say that, I have always taught as a way to learn a subject, to study it better. Not learn it, to study it better, because the questions will cause me to have to go down corners I might not have otherwise thought about, and gives me a broader sense of the possibilities. That's why I enjoy working with children. Their imaginations are still absolutely wide open, and they have not been contaminated yet with social restrictions of the way you need to look at something.
I want to thank Savannah for that letter. Rick, let's just divert for a minute and we'll talk about cheating. And I'll tell you why I'd like to talk about this. I'm pretty confident that the students who are listening today have been told something akin to, if you cheat on an exam, if you cheat on your homework, you're only cheating yourself. Now, when you're a student in elementary school, that's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that what your teacher is telling you is true. But let's talk about why that's true. It is true, class. Because, for example, if instead of learning how to do certain arithmetic problem solving, or instead of doing research on a social studies problem or topic, or a science problem or topic, if you avoid that and you just borrow your classmates' work, what you've done is skipped learning how to do what you were assigned to do. Now, can you get by with that in the short run? Maybe. But in the long run, it will hurt you, and you will be cheating yourselves. And one of the questions that was asked in one of these letters that we read was, how do you know those things? How do you know the things that we talk about on the radio? Well, it's by studying them, and by learning them, and by not cheating. Because had we cheated our way all the way through school, neither Rick, nor I, nor Grace Thorne would be able to do what we do, because we wouldn't be able to answer your questions, because we'd have to cheat from someone else to get the answer to answer your questions. Right, Rick?
Well, I remember my 4th grade report card that said, Ricky is very disruptive. He asks too many questions.
Wait a minute, are you reading your report card or mine?
What's that?
Are you reading yours or... Are you reading your report card or mine?
When I was in 4th grade, I actually did not know how to read. I really didn't. I had been moved around to so many different schools, and my primary language was Tagalog, Philippine. And I did some Mandarin and Palau, and then English, but I couldn't read. And 4th grade. And I had a report card that actually said I was disruptive, and it was my 5th grade teacher that kept me after school every night teaching me how to read. And by the end of that year, By the time I was in 6th grade, I had read every single science fiction book in the local library. You know, it had a little atom on it. Man, I just went down.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and if you'd like to take a look at his website, oak-publishing.com, oak-publishing.com, and richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, you were talking about your 4th grade report card. I thought you were talking about my 4th grade report card, because mine said
I didn't even know how to read until the 5th grade. I was so very lucky to have a good teacher that took time out and wanted me to excel. And because of that, here I am. And that is what we call the transformation in education. Teachers like Grace Thorne and others, this is where it'll all happen.
Ricky, I couldn't agree with you more, and the same exact thing happened to me, except worse. Not only could I not read, and my report, and Mrs. Finelli pulled out my report card, and I believe she was reading it to Dr. Howard Shayne and his wife, Dr. M.L. Shayne. She was kind of embarrassing me about, and it said, Vincent is disruptive.
Just like right now, cause trouble.
Just like right now. Some things haven't changed in many years. But I couldn't spell, and I could not read. And as a matter of fact, I did what you did. I read every science book that there was in the library by the 5th grade. I mean, when I learned how to read, it started around the 5th grade that I could actually start to read. And I had a teacher who worked very closely with me to help me learn how to read. But I couldn't read in the 4th grade. I actually stayed back, and they worked with me until I could finally get to read. But I had dyslexia, and the words were jumping around all over the page. They would not hold still from my mind. I mean, they were on the page and they held still, but in my mind, the words were jumping around forward, backwards, and they just wouldn't hold still. So I was probably the worst reader, not only in the class, but in the school at that time. But I worked on it. I had a teacher who was very fortunate, as you were, who really helped me. And I was able to learn how to read. Now I read a lot. From Lily, here's her letter. Thank you so much for letting us be on your show. Mrs. Thorne told us we were ranked number 15. That's an honor. It was a wonderful experience. We had a great time. We're very glad. We're very glad to get to do it again. Now, that would require a phone call. If you're interested in doing it again, class, please have your parents call and thank your superintendent, Mr. Larry Ninman. I'm going to give out his phone number one more time, 580-757-2308. 580-757-2308. And if you'd like us to be involved with your class, wherever you may be, answering questions about science, we can do that. And just contact us through the website, usaprepares.com, and we'd love to talk to you about that, and we'd love to actually do it. So if you're interested in having us work with your class, just contact me through the website, and I'll do everything I can to make that happen. That's Vincent, or my email address is vincent@usaprepares.com, or you can use the contact tab. Dear Mr. Finelli, thank you for letting us be on your show. We had a lot of fun. Our class hopes that we're on your show again and hopes to learn more about how to live our lives. It's a lot of fun to talk with you and Dr. Miller, your friend, Brooke. Now, Rick, that is a very important point. They want to learn more about how to live their own lives.
You know, these are the questions that none of us know where to go to ask. Where would you go to ask that kind of a question? And that's
Rick,
the possibilities of what radio can offer, where people like a Dr. Norm Shealy, or myself, or others could be available for the kids to ask those questions that they have, and it could be an extension of what we call continuing ed, what we call extracurricular. It could be done through the libraries, and there are local experts that could be doing this on a more local and regional basis. This could be a new concept in the way teachers interface their children with the real world.
Rick, I remember being in fourth grade and going to an assembly, and in the front of the assembly, the entire school was there, there was a dentist, and he taught us how to brush our teeth. They brought in an expert, a guy who was involved in drilling and filling, an expert, a medically trained expert, a dentist, to teach us how to brush our teeth and care for our teeth. And maybe that's one of the reasons why some of us have them and have taken care of them. So here's another letter. Dear Mr. Finelli, hello, I'm Olivia. My mom and I enjoyed listening to the show. I was the last one who asked about witchcraft. And thank you for letting us be on the radio. You'll probably hear that a lot. I hope we can do this again. Oh, P.S. I like to study witchcraft and alchemy. I don't do it, but I like to read about it. Thanks, your friend, Olivia. That's the last letter. Rick, interesting. When we were children, we were interested in witchcraft. Why is that?
It's occult, meaning hidden or somehow restricted. And when it's hidden knowledge, that's what occult means, is hidden knowledge. And it's like when you're told you can't study something because it's bad. What are you going to do? You going to let that stop you? Never stopped me. I had no fear, but now I have lots of fears as I get older. but in the early years, when something was occluded, I wanted to know what the answer was, and I wouldn't stop until I found something that satisfied my understanding of how something might work. I found nothing that when it challenged me like that, I would not stop until I got to a place of satisfaction in my understanding of it. I didn't quit because it was beyond me. I felt nothing is beyond me. That is true for these children. Nothing is beyond your understanding. You will be able to get things your parents can't. And so with that said, go for it. If you want to know something, go strive for it. Become a passion to unveil what is hidden. Now, witchcraft was always associated in Europe as the wise old woman in the woods that had either been kicked out of the city or the town, and she lived down in the woods and was basically an herbalist. She knew what to do in terms of like being a hero, a healer, and that was what witchcraft was associated with, was the old ways of using apple cider vinegar as opposed to, Tinactin on your athlete's foot. I went to emergency, and they prescribed Tinactin, and it didn't work. And when I used apple cider vinegar, it was gone. Mm-hmm. And today, witchcraft in America is possibly the closest thing that we have to that would be the American Indian, the way they live with their seasons and their relationship to the earth and to animals. And it's like totemism and animism. It's a more primitive way of, or indigenous, that's a better word. It's a more way of being indigenous to the environment. And so, American Indians today are respected for their spiritual relationship to the earth. And spirituality is basically defined as not what you do, but how you do it, the quality in which you go about your personal pursuit, like me, and wanting to have something answered. So rather than have fear, It's better to empower yourself by going after and understanding fully what's going on. And witchcraft offers that unknown with children. Of course, Hollywood has heightened it, in terms of the good witch and the bad witch and the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked Witch of the North. Oh, I'm melting. Oh. Interestingly, how these creep into our belief systems and assume truths. And that's what I like about children. They're very wide open to the possibilities of something else going on than what their parents might believe.
Mm-hmm. Rick, there was an admission of another leak holding highly contaminated radioactive
water. Yeah, I saw
water.
that this morning. You saw yesterday that they pulled some bluefin tuna out of San Francisco, and they were radioactive, and every single tuna now has been contaminated with cesium-134 and cesium-137. They're contaminated now because of that. And this just yesterday, before this news this morning.
And I've got to read this again. I have to read this letter again, just because these children are right on the money. We're talking about Grace Thorne's 6th grade class. They wrote 15 letters to each one of these 2 U.S. senators and 1 U.S. representative. And the letters, 15 went to Senator James Inhofe at his Washington, D.C. office. 15 went to U.S. Senator Tom Coburn at his Washington, D.C. office. And 15 went to U.S. Representative Tom Cole at his Washington, D.C. office. Let me read this letter, class. And none of these students has received a response from any of these elected representatives. And they are concerned about radioactivity in their world, in their future, caused by us, caused by our generation, through neglect, bad science, and the extreme pursuit of monetary gains. I'll tell you what, I'll read that letter when we come back right after this break. And who am I directing this at? General Electric did it. General Electric and the government of Japan allowed these reactors to be installed and put operational online in Japan. And we did the same thing right here with General Electric in the United States of America. 6th graders wrote this letter. You won't believe it. Well, class, I know you would expect me to call the phone numbers that I gave out today, and I did, just now. And I called U.S. Senator James Inhofe's office, 202-224-4721. And what I got was the office hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It was a message. And please leave a message. So I was ready to leave a message. And then I get, the mailbox is full. That's Senator James Inhofe. Now, I also called Senator Tom Coburn's number, and that number's been disconnected. That's 202-225-60. I'm sorry. That number is 202-224-5757. That number has been disconnected. Now, I also called U.S. Representative Tom Cole's office, and the phone was answered by a staff assistant by the name of Trent Bishop. And what I asked him was, there has been no response to the letters that were sent to U.S. Representative Tom Cole and at his Washington office, and he's going to look into it. So I asked him to consider listening to this broadcast right now. So he's listening to us, and I'm going to read the letter that was sent. So Staff Assistant Trent Bishop, this letter was sent to U.S. Representative Tom Cole from Ryan, Oklahoma, 6th grade students. 15 letters were sent to your office. And it says, Dear Sir, after learning about what happened at the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, all the 6th graders in Ryan, Oklahoma strongly beg you to shut down all nuclear facilities. We know of 17 in the Tennessee Valley that are on fault lines. Whose bright idea was that? We believe our future may depend on this. And it was signed sincerely by 15 different students. 15 copies were sent, and I don't know the date that they were sent, but you can call the Ryan Public School System and ask them when they were sent. But I will follow up, and I will get that information to you also. So, Rick, students are absolutely brilliant in their question, and our congressmen and senators have not responded. Not one congressman.
Give them a moment. They could show a ray of brilliance also in the way they approach and handle this whole thing, because all of them now have an opportunity to participate in something really, really important in educational transformation. These kids are asking hard questions, just like they did with me, and I think part of their fiduciary responsibility is to address these children as future voters with parents that are voters.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I did notice when I talked with Trent Bishop, U.S. Representative Tom Cole's staff assistant, one of the first things he asked me was, were these letters from their district? So evidently they're not interested in responding. That's how I read it, to anyone who's not in the district. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
Well, yes and no, because, of course, he has to be first concerned with his district. Mm-hmm. However, this is like transcends borders when it deals with children and their educational process. Mm-hmm. Because what he does is a metaphor for what he does.
Yes, and for Trent Bishop's benefit, Trent, you may go to usaprepares.com, click on Listen to Vincent, and you can download last Thursday's program where we were asked questions by the 6th grade class. And we would encourage you to ask your boss, U.S. Representative Tom Cole, to visit this school district. It would do him very well, and it would do the students very well, and we will report on it if you do it. So if you have him visit, it'd be a great move, a great advance in the education of our young people. With us today is Dr. Richard Allen Miller, physicist and author and senior USAPrepares.com instructor. Rick, hey, thanks so much for being with us and going through these letters. Fukushima, Rick, I guess we're not going to eat anything out of the oceans, are we?
Be careful.
Yeah, there you go. Be careful. The oceans are contaminated. They're all interconnected, and Fukushima has done it. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.